Little preview of today's video. How many bikes do you think are in my garage today? It's not a pretty sight, and there's even been some carnage. But it's all for a very, very good purpose, and it all started with these two bikes, and I can't wait to tell you the story. Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Today we have a very special episode. What do?
We bought another bike.
Okay, so today's episode is being sponsored by Grandma. Grandma noticed that one of her grandkids didn't have a decent bike, and so she asked us to be on the lookout for a good deal. And it just so happens that I found one this week. So we just got this bike home. We're gonna show you, first of all, what we saw on Facebook that made us interested in this bike. And then we'll actually walk through it piece by piece. We'll inspect it, we'll show you how we inspect a bike, and we're gonna get this bike all ready for Andrew's cousin, who's gonna come to the house this weekend, and we'll see what kind of good surprise we can stir up for him. This is a Cannondale F8, and I'm not really sure what the year is yet. We're still looking that up, but here are the things that I saw when I first noticed the bike on Facebook, okay? Starting with the wheels. Okay, I noticed that these are 26-inch wheels. They're a little bit older, which means I can usually get a better price on those. Second thing I saw is that it has disc brakes. That it had a 3x8 drivetrain. That the paint job is in great shape. There was no rust on the bike. Even as I get in here and look at the chain's dirty, but it's not rusty. And there really wasn't even a lot of scratches on the top of the chainstay here. So there was a lot of good that I saw here with this bike. I also noticed that the stanchions, right, the suspension here was in good shape. There was no rust. I couldn't see any streaks of oil or grease or anything else on there. And so between all that, I thought, okay, this bike is probably a decent little bike to go after. So it turns out that we bought this bike for $200. When I showed up to pick up the bike, the thing I was probably most disappointed with was that the tires were a little on the small side. They're really quite narrow. They're sitting at about 1.9 inches wide. I really like my kids to have a 2.1 to a 2.5 inch wide tire, just to give them good stability and confidence on the trail. I also noticed that it had these Shimano shifter brake systems all in one. I'm not a big fan of those because it limits my ability to upgrade these to like hydraulic brakes. So there you have it. There's the walkthrough. It's not a super fancy bike, but the price was right. And it's a lot better than the bike he currently has. I also want to mention that it's a medium frame, which was the right size for our cousin as well. So I thought, let's give it a shot. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this bike apart, show you what we're going to take apart to get this all cleaned up, and see if we can't make it rideable for our cousin. Now right here, we're just looking at the brake pads and trying to see how much material is left there. And that is plenty of material. So we know that the brake pads are in good shape. Alright, so here's our secret bike washing tools. We have just a car washing brush that we picked up from the store for like $2, $3, something like that. A little soap, a little flathead screwdriver to scrape off some of that grease. As we go through this, you can kind of see this is looking nice and shiny now. There you go. we spent about 45 minutes cleaning up this bike, trying to figure out what else we wanted to do to it. And I really wanted to do a lot. I wanted to put on a new fork, a new drivetrain. I thought we could get some new cranks, some new shifters in here, some hydraulic brakes. And honestly, if I was willing to put about $200 into this bike, we could make it pretty spectacular. But the plain and simple truth is this bike functions great as it is, and the cousin that's going to get this bike isn't going to be doing a whole lot of downhill riding. He's going to do a lot of rails to trails, a lot of riding with his friends in the city, going to and from school, going to the park, maybe doing some light trail riding. And this bike is totally sufficient, at least for him, for the next year or two. We took the wheels off, checked the brake pads to make sure the brake pads had enough life in them. We tested the brakes. We cleaned up the chain and the gear shifters, the derailleurs. We cleaned up all of that drivetrain stuff, degreased it as much as we could, and re-lubed the chain. We looked at changing out the chain, doing a couple other things, but honestly, it just didn't need it. So as it is, this bike took us about 45 minutes to wash up, to tune up, and it's a $200 bike, I think, that goes all day long. Andrew, like, you got to ride it, you're the test rider. Your cousin is about the same size as you. What did you think?
I actually really like it. If I got to ride it a couple times, I think I would like it a lot. The only thing that I would most want to change is how thick the tires are. I also think it felt pretty light when I was doing the bunny hops and wheeling.
Why do you like a lighter bike?
Because it's easier to go uphill.
Andrew does not like to climb a lot, right?
I guess.
He's getting better.
The suspension's really good.
Yeah, it moves really well. I thought it was going to be frozen. I thought it was going to be old, but there's no leaks in the seals. It's really in good shape.
Yeah.
What else?
I feel like the drivetrain would be pretty good. I didn't go through any of the gears.
And you didn't really climb on it yet either.
Yeah, but I still feel like this is going to be a good bike, and he's not even going to do a lot of climbing.
Right.
It's a good bike.
Yeah, it's not bad for the price. So did I mention that Grandma asked for not one, but 2 bikes? I've been on the hunt for multiple days trying to find another bike for her other grandson. And it's the night before our ride. We're gonna take the kids on the Ashton-Teutonia Rails to Trails trail, and they were gonna ride their bikes. And I only had one new bike for one of the boys. And so today, after searching all weekend, today I found one more bike. Now I'll say, this is a Raleigh Talus 3. It's probably, it looks to me it's about a 2012 to a 2013, so it's probably a few years old. The guy was asking $200, and at that price, I don't negotiate. I know that it's the right price. I know I'm gonna pay that, and so I just said, I'll take it, and I went right there and picked it up. Same thing with the last bike that you saw, the Cannondale. The guy was also asking $200, just gave it to him, went right there and got it. I kind of know where the price points are. If I see a bike with disc brakes, with good working suspension, a decent frame that can be upgraded with other parts, and a gear system that shifts and works well, it's $200 all day. Sometimes I'd even be willing to go up to $250 or $300, especially with bikes being bought and sold as quickly as they have been. I'm super happy that we made this work. Can't wait for these boys to see that they have new bikes that are their size, that work and fit well. They're gonna be stoked. They're gonna be so happy that they actually have something that's their own. Taking a second to show you what these boys were riding, I wanna show you why I'm not a fan of these types of bikes. First of all, they just end up in the landfill or in the Salvation Army after a year or two. They just don't seem to last, and they're not trail worthy. Getting down into the details, let me show you why. This is a really cheap Shimano derailleur. It doesn't have a real derailleur hanger. It just mounts right here to the frame, so this really cannot be upgraded. All of this is pretty much the way it's going to stay. There's only 7 gears there, and there's not a very good range of gears. You really want to make sure that there's a wide variety of gears, so when the rider shifts gears, they actually can feel a difference. This bike doesn't have a really good range. Going up here, once again, not a decent bottom bracket or cranks or shifter down here. Nothing that you can really do anything with in the long run. This is just going to stay the way it is. Handlebars and shock, not fixable really. It's just a really, and you'll notice this kind of steerer tube is just the old school steerer tube. They haven't used those in quite some years on new bikes. And last but not least, the thing that I really hate are these rim brakes, these V rim brakes. They're just awful. They don't give the kids enough braking power to really learn how to brake. It takes a lot of pulling power here. Braking with this kind of brake does not give me confidence. Let's just put it that way. Here's a quick preview of bike number 2. Slightly bigger bike, 26-inch wheels, almost all the same specs as the other bike. The handlebars are super narrow, and they've got these awful grip shifters. Some people like them, but most people have agreed that they're just hard to teach a kid how to shift gears appropriately when you're trying to figure out how to twist here and pull here. Like, even if as I pull that, like, it's just so sluggish. These types of bikes have been marketed as mountain bikes, but they are not for mountain biking. This is a commuter's bike, if anything. These bikes served a great purpose when they were first bought for these boys. I think the person that bought them had great intentions, really wanted to make sure that the boys had something to ride so they could go to the park and hang out with their friends. But they're getting older and they're starting to do other things with their mom, trying to go out on trails and see the sights, get into the backcountry a little bit, and this is just not a backcountry or trail-worthy bike. And I'm pretty confident in the bikes that we did get for them. I know that those bikes are going to be more reliable. So the next morning we surprised the boys with their bikes, got them all loaded on the rack, took them out to the trail, and we learned that new bikes are not always great surprises. These boys were used to their old bikes. The size was different, the gear shifting was different, so it took a little bit of time getting used to those things and getting them up to speed and comfortable with their new bikes. But it turned out great. They had great smiles on their faces. I'm so happy that we got them these bikes, that they could ride together with their family, with their mom, and see some new scenery. So if you liked this video, please hit that subscribe button, and don't forget to get outside, pedal hard, and ride together.